Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this exciting, like 2-day journey into mastering, money mindset, where you can actually build wealth with confidence. My name is Rashmi Chanduraj, the founder of Aarcstone Capital Partners. I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you today. But before I get into the details, I do want to apologize. It seems like we did have like a little bit of a snafu with our timing, and some of you might have joined, earlier. I apologize for the inconvenience, but here we are. I am excited. Today we're actually going to be diving into really understanding the mindset behind financial success. We're going to explore how our sort of personal beliefs influence our money decisions. Identify like what those financial barriers are, and learn how to set sort of meaningful financial goals. Tomorrow, we're actually going to go more into how do we move these, the mindset and, into more sort of actionable strategies. We'll learn a little bit more about, sort of psychology, smart investing, how, to sort of create a plan to move this into action. But that we're going to get into, tomorrow. Before we jump into today's sort of content, which I am so excited, especially end of the year, to be able to do this exercise, I think is just, something that we as a family, like we personally do. I encourage my kids to do that as well. So I'm really stoked, that you guys are here joining me in this journey to be able to do that. And I would love to introduce my very good friend and colleague, Wendy Acosta. Wendy is not only an experienced real estate investor, but also someone who has navigated and, embarked on a very similar sort of journey. And sort of seen that personal growth. Wendy, it's an honor to have you here, so welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
This is great. Wendy, I actually want to start with, I think it's a perfect way for us to kind of get started. Um, the question that comes to me is, and, for everyone here, like, what do you think is the difference between money and wealth? Are they the same thing? Like, I can tell you a little bit, like my own personal journey, like, um, people think that for a long time, I thought it was interchangeable, right? Like money and wealth kind of like the same thing. Um, Especially, like I really learned, I feel like the difference in that when I moved from my corporate role into sort of real estate investing and, diversifying sort of my portfolio, I realized that no, they're actually quite different. Money for me was something I used, something that enabled day-to-day activities. And it almost was very transactional, right? Like I kind of, it was almost like, yeah, like transactional sort of is the right word. But wealth, is more than that. It's, really about like freedom. It's about, being able to have the ability to make choices. It's having sort of the peace of mind, and the ability to be make impact, right? And especially for those like around us. I think that's what I associate it with,
Mm.
the sort of money and wealth. But Wendy, I know you've kind of gone through sort of a similar journey, and sort of a similar shift in perspective. Talk to us about what you can share, the distinction between like money as well as wealth, and what that means to you personally.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rashmi. I am so happy to be on the call with you and to share this 2-day webinar of like packed of like really good information that I'm sure people are going to find so valuable. I'm so happy to be here. But yeah, so like back to that question, for me, the difference between money and wealth has been one of the most like important realizations that I've had in my life and in my journey. No, I don't think money and wealth are the same thing. Money to me is a tool that we get to use. It's a neutral source that we all have that's circulating, like you said, is transactional. It's circulating and flowing through us, on a day to day. But wealth is so different than just having that circulation of money. Wealth is actually being intentional with building a legacy and like building long term. And, to me, wealth is an energy, it's a state of being, it's a belief system, and it's about creating stability, freedom for not just you, but also for the people that you love. And that expansion that aligns with like the deepest desires for our vision and for our future overall. But throughout my journey, I've come to see that wealth is a mindset, and it isn't just about accumulating money. It's about living in alignment with the belief in abundance, um,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's available for us. Um, Investing in multifamily like yourself, these investments, these properties have taught me to trust in the flow of money as a way to build assets that reflects more of the values and the long-term goals that we each have. True wealth is creating a legacy, not from force, but from an empowerment that aligns with the relationship that we have with money. But it does start there. The foundation starts with, the everyday money mindset. One of the most opening steps that I've taken in my journey was uncovering and rewriting my personal money story. So for me, it wasn't easy, as these thoughts of money always brought up certain mix of emotions, but it did become the foundation for how I've created a more like intentional and abundant relationship with money. So today, actually, Rashmi, I would love to take that same step throughout an exercise that we can all do together.
Yeah. No, that I I think that's brilliant. I love some of your, like nuggets as far as, just mindset, and the association there. It is so true. But before, like Wendy, before you kind of walk us through this exercise, I just wanted to
Mhm.
call out, I think it's important, right? Like, because one of the things, that we're talking about here, especially that I want, for the audience to take away is, um, it's that framework that we're working through here. One is just that awareness, isn't it? It's
Yes.
being
Yes.
aware of what are um our thought process, like and
Mhm.
the next one is really the to identify what those barriers are. And then it's like, okay, well, like as part of that, how do we sort of mobilize, these goals that we have? I think, coming up really with that sort of framework and keeping in mind that
Mhm.
aim, A for awareness, I for, like identify the barriers, and M for mobilize goals. I think that is so important. Anyways, what you're going to be walking us through today is that awareness phase, which is um, I mean, I think that's number one, isn't it? You can do something about it if you're aware. So just being able to reflect, that reflect on that, I think is going to be great. So I just wanted
Mhm.
to call that out, Wendy. But go ahead, please continue.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is definitely the best way to start is for having that aim framework, right? Like awareness, identifying the barriers, and then mobilizing and taking action. So yes, I would love to invite you guys to please grab your notebook or the workbook for day one that you have access using the link that will be put in the chat. Um, please feel free to download that workbook. But if you do not have that, just a notebook, piece of paper to kind of start off with this exercise that we will work through to kind of start reflecting on this framework that we're using. So step one, first of all,
I
I
just want
want
to
you, yes, go
sorry,
ahead. Is
before
the
we get
link
into
there?
it, yeah, I just posted the
Okay,
link, so
perfect.
for, the participants, if you want to just, go click on the link, it'll actually take you to the landing page. And right on top of the landing page, you'll see the download day one workbook right under, where it says day one and day two. So if you want to grab that, it kind of will just give you, the workbook that we're going to be using. But again, it doesn't have to be. If you're not able to download it, don't sweat it. Just, grab a piece of paper, to do this exercise.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so I
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody has access to that. Because yes, that workbook is definitely going to be your guide for today and then our second day tomorrow. So once you're ready and you have that or either like a piece of paper, um, we will start with step number one. So step number one is reflecting on your earliest money memory. So it really is thinking back to your childhood and recalling the first experience that you ever remember with money. So this could be a joyful memory or one that felt kind of challenging, whatever comes to your mind. I just want you to write down that first childhood memory that you have with money. So I'm just going to give one example, my example. One of my earliest money memories involves watching, my parents who are immigrants from Mexico. They came to this country. So I really was engraved with the belief of, like working tirelessly to make ends meet. So I remember my first experience with money was one that involved we have to work very hard for every penny that we have. So this idea was deeply ingrained in me and became a belief that I carried into my adulthood, into my profession, my career, being a mom as well. It has taken, again, that awareness of recognizing that those beliefs are no longer serving and we have to detach. I thought that the only way to succeed financially was through constant hustle and hard work. So I work very hard all the time. I still challenge myself all the time because I've been so programmed to work very hard for my money and, often at the expense of time and all of my energy. So it wasn't until later in my journey now that I realized that working smarter, not harder, building systems like investing, that could create wealth without the constant grind. So I want to just have you guys really expand your ability to reflect on that memory because this is what was adopted into our belief system. We all have these thoughts and beliefs that we involuntarily were had adopted into what we become today. So
So true. I just want to point
yes.
out, like, one of the things that, that just personally for me is this whole thought, of, oh, like you have to save, which is great. Like I come from
Mm-hmm.
India, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just the whole, thought process of, like, yeah, you earn, but you save. And, like that was what, was sort of ingrained. But
Yeah.
and that I'm very thankful and grateful for, like having that discipline. But
Yeah.
as I've, and I did that religiously, I think the change or what I didn't learn is, it's not just save, it's invest,
That's
and
right.
I felt like that's the operative word there. like just saving with inflation and everything, that, your money is just not going to work for you versus, having that discipline of investing. Had I, sort of been taught that or known about it a little bit more, it would have
Mhm.
been different. But anyways, go ahead.
Yes. No, yeah, absolutely. I think, abundance isn't something you chase, it's something that you have to align with. And again, it goes back to what are we holding on to? What did we grow up thinking was the way, right? Let's go
Yeah.
into step number two. So, step number two is to list three financial messages that you internalize as a child. So, these could be things you heard directly or lessons that you might have picked up from observing how your family and or even your community handled money. So, for instance, you might recall hearing we can't afford that, right? Like we can't afford that. And then again, hard work is the only way to succeed. Um, so yes, this kind of supports that first step, but like step number two is really more of like not just your family, also community, like what you might have heard through, more of like career, school. Um, so yes, recalling what you might have heard, anything that you might have picked up by observing um, in your community from people that you were around, from what you were hearing at school, from other adults that you were around. And just writing down right now, it's like, again, doing a lot of the awareness, like picking up. So really just take your time to list these three, if you can, list three financial messages that you might have internalized up to this point. Um, so it kind of just builds off of step number one, but then if we're okay, Rashmi, you don't want to add anything there, we'll move into
Yeah. Yeah.
the next
I
step.
think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the next step is step number three. So, identifying one limiting belief about money that you still carry today. So, is there a thought or belief that feels like it's holding you back financially? Like if you're feeling stuck right now financially, let's figure out what is that belief that you're holding on today. It could be something like I'm just not good with money, or I can't afford to invest, um, such as a way that where you may be feeling stuck right now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to add
No,
anything
that's
to that?
no, absolutely. I think that's definitely, like for most of us, we've been in that, either one of these, categories, right? Like,
Like,
or we're surrounded, by that thought of, like, oh, I'm not good with money, or like, this is too much, I can't afford it. Absolutely. Like, you want to live within your means. I mean, that's one of the things that, like, I have been taught. So for the longest
mhm,
time, I never got a credit card because that was just the thing that I did. I didn't,
yeah,
it kind of went against the live within your means concept. So
mhm,
I did, but until, like, actually one of my friends introduced me to, why wouldn't you have a credit card? Why are you using your debit card for everything? Like, you can actually earn points, and,
yeah,
like, like,
yeah,
he talked about how that's what he did and that's how he was traveling, and, all of that. And I was like, oh, really? I mean, this was a long time ago, but
yeah,
still, even then,
yeah,
not knowing and, being able to do that, I feel like, there is still
mhm,
some, folks that I know who are in that same sort of mindset. I think it's,
mhm,
and part of it is that education is right. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know until
yeah,
someone told me that, hey, there is something beyond, beyond that. This was also, over 20 years ago.
ah,
It's a little different, but, you
that's
know,
right.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I think it's rewriting that narrative,
yeah,
and the way I've seen it and the way I'm working through it every day is being open to the overflow almost in some sort of way. this is why I love investing. And I think, you can probably relate, but it's a different concept with investing. It's like that overflow, like you don't have to trade more of your time.
Yeah.
So being open to that, I think, with step number three. But we can jump into step number four, our last step.
Yeah.
So step number four is reframing that limiting belief. So whatever belief that you've written down that you're still holding on to, let's reframe it and make it into an empowering truth. So let's reframe that limiting belief into an empowering truth. Challenge is validity and rewriting it into a belief that supports your financial growth. For example, if your belief is money is hard to come by, you might reframe it as money flows to me through opportunities that I create. So is reframing that belief with an empowerment truth behind it. Like, let's look at those and how those are not working, and let's reframe them into something that's going to be more empowering for you to be more open to the idea that's going to help you create more and be open to accept and be open to more, more of
Yeah.
the opportunities that are out there. And I think really it's just once you've done these steps, really just taking a moment to reflect on what you've written down. And I'll tell you, because this might feel uncomfortable. So it may take some going back and really like journaling on them, reflecting on them. The way I've started to do this is I find time for silence and I lit a candle and I make it a relaxing environment where you're just going to make the environment feel safe and comfortable enough for you to just jot down anything that may feel shameful, but at the end it doesn't reflect who you are. So again, this may feel a little bit uncomfortable. That is okay. Growth often begins at the edges of discomfort. So I want you guys to, make sure that you understand money is never like something that we actually, many of us don't feel to the point where we have the ability to feel comfortable talking or writing or even thinking about it. But I really just hope that this exercise helps you gain new insights about your relationship with money. Remember, this is just the start of a powerful transformation. The awareness part is just the beginning of a very powerful transformation. And as you become more aware of these narratives that you're holding on to, you'll be able to rewrite your story and make decisions that align
Yeah.
with the wealth and the freedom that you desire.
Oh my God. 100%. That is so like well said. I love that sort of, four-step process. Do we want to give like a couple of minutes, for the audience to just, kind of make their notes? And if anyone wants, to go ahead and use the chat and add, what they've seen is sort of, um, things like that they would hold back, or what their relationship with money is, that would be great. We'll keep this session sort of interactive. um
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
because those are, I think for all of us, we kind of are in that, in that phase, right, where we will,
Mm-hmm.
um like money is not something that we talk about freely. It's almost like, um almost secretive, but that's also what society has, like provided, or instilled, that sort of environment. Oh my God, like, you can, and I come from HR. So for us, it was like, oh, you can't go discuss your compensation, your total comp or whatever with, others. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's the environment that we're in. So we're surrounded by that. So there is
Yeah.
sort of this undercurrent of not wanting to talk about it. And I think, it's fine. It just depends on, where you are and your comfort level. But I think the most important in that four-step process is understanding, it goes back to what you talked about as far as awareness goes. I think it's understanding, what your relationship is with money. Like, how comfortable are you, with that? I think
Yeah.
that's the first step, right?
Yeah.
In
Absolutely.
you being able to kind of taking that ownership, and then it becomes easier because now you're more aware. You'll take those steps to go into what that next step is. In fact, that's a perfect segue um into the I in aim, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
identifying those barriers. Like, obviously in
Mm-hmm.
this case, it's financial barriers. Many of us have like stories from like the past, that sort of hold us back financially, whether it's like beliefs, like, oh my God, like you talked about, oh, money is hard to come by, or, like, wealth is only like for other people or the rich people, or like those are things that like we've heard repeatedly. And these sort of narratives have obviously, they limit our potential. They limit us from realizing that no, it is for, it could be us. It could
Right.
be us, right? It's just about obviously us being intentional then, with the actions that we take.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
I love it. Yes. And I
yeah,
also think that the most powerful thing that we all have is that at the end, like we're all our own architect of our wealth story, and it's
yeah,
available. Like I said, money is circulating, wealth is intentional, but it's available for all of us.
yeah.
So I think that's just realizing the truth. And a lot of times it's having these uncomfortable, you know, times of reflection where we may feel all these emotions of like, I've built so much debt. How am I gonna, like these almost shameful feelings of not being capable. But that doesn't, I always say your past doesn't determine who you are or what you're capable of doing in the future.
100%. No, for sure. That's great. So what I think, as part of, the exercise in the workbook, I would encourage, the audience to actually write one limiting belief that you think is holding you back. I mean, I would say use the workbook, or, like use the sheet of paper that you're, or a notebook, whatever it is that you're writing on. If you're using the workbook, I think it's on page 4. But, write down, what is your limiting belief? Like it could be something like, oh, I need, like you talked about, I need to work harder for really every dollar that I bring in, or, like
Mhm.
investing is too risky.
Mhm.
Which was mine, like guilty for that, right? Like I was like, oh my God, like no, like I was so fearful of investing. I mean, forget about that. Like I wouldn't even go and gamble. Like I remember like years ago, going to Vegas, and I was so nervous to even go and, like use the slot machine, because I was like, like I don't want to go lose my money there. But that was the thought. It was that sort of close, I didn't want to take any risk. Right.
Right.
But, I think it goes back to, being honest with yourself, I think, and owning that honesty, saying, hey, yes, I am like that. Yes, I've I've become aware that I've brought up with this notion that investing is too risky, so therefore I'm not investing, and therefore that's what brews my fear of investing, for example. Um,
Mhm.
so I think it's understanding and coming to that realization. So I would urge, like the audience to really go in and be honest with yourself, and like outline what that limiting belief for you is, because that's going to be really powerful.
That's right.
While I know, Wendy, you talked about this briefly. It's while you talk about the limiting beliefs and identifying what those barriers are, right? It's then changing that narrative, it's uh, and like being able to like say something like, which is empowering, right? Like, for example,
Mhm.
if your belief is I'll never be able to save enough, to retire, right? Like, frame it as I am capable of building my financial future, and I will do it by taking, intentional steps, right? Like, you will own that. That is such a sort of, powerful reframe, because now you're going to own what action you're going to take to do that. Like, again, there are so many things that, uh we've um we've all kind of been through, and I'm guilty for some of these, like, oh my god, like I'll never be able to afford my dream home, right? But it's not like, by saving consistently, being smart, exploring what, uh, the smart sort of strategies that are there, that can lead you to owning your sort of dream home. Same
Yeah.
way, like, I'm not good with money, you talked about that earlier, right? But that is also an easy one, like staying, changing that statement to like, I can, improve my financial skills by learning, practicing. I can
Yeah.
go seek guidance, get help, I think
Yeah.
changing that
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah. And
And
it's
I'm sure you get the idea, but yeah,
yeah, and it's putting an empowerment to support a disempowering belief almost, right? Like
yeah,
empowering it in a way where it's shifting. Now that thought doesn't reflect on you. Like you kind of are just thinking the same thought, but now there's an empowerment
yeah,
framework behind it. So it's like shifting it to empower a disempowering um, belief. So
so
yeah,
true.
I think it's great.
It's like, my dad used to say, believing is achieving.
Hmm.
Um, but it's that belief, right? That you are believing that it's possible versus you putting in that notion that, oh no, it's hard, I can't do it. Right? I think that itself is powerful.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's it. I love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
once
be
you sort
open to
of,
release it. I know we
what's
could like
that?
talk about this subject because we both feel are so passionate about, releasing that fear, releasing, and embracing more of that flow and how do we shift our mindset and, um,
Yeah,
but yeah, these specific topics, like I know you're very passionate about. We've talked about it, and
yeah,
I'm very passionate about it. Um,
yeah,
so good to understand these very important concepts that can be life changing.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and then obviously the next step really is mobilizing goals. But before going into that, and uh, as we sort of identify and reframe these, like limiting beliefs, obviously moving into the next, and sort of that final step of the AIM framework is, mobilizing the goals, and this is where you're taking sort of, like actionable steps, right?
That's right.
And I'm sure many of them, and I'm sure in the audience, and you guys will know the SMART goals and the concept of SMART goals. It's basically, SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals, right? Um, and using that sort of framework, to come up with, goals, and be it financial, personal, whatever it is. I think to come up with those goals is going to be really powerful. um so I actually, feel like we should take a moment and, work through sort of our workbook and outline, the SMART goals as we go,
Hmm.
in, as well as, maybe go back and reflect on, some of the items that we've talked about for, including for AIM. I think that is going to be such a powerful exercise to do. Um, as we kind of go into, like really outlining actionable goals. Um, to take a moment and write, like one SMART goal, like, be it like a financial goal that you'd like to achieve. Um, it can be any financial goal. So I would urge, the audience to, maybe add like a financial goal, using the SMART strategy that um, you know, they can actually, add. But Wendy, could you share like how SMART goals have kind of made the difference in like your journey?
Yeah. So absolutely. The first time I've heard of setting SMART goals was actually back in my corporate job. I didn't know that this framework and this concept could work so well with like really anything, but like financial goals in
Yeah.
specific are setting SMART goals and using the SMART framework has been like a game changer. I use it all the time. So when I was starting out, I set a goal to invest in my first rental property within like 12 months. And breaking it down into actionable milestones helped me stay focused on exactly what that target was. And each week I was either researching, saving, or I was out networking, anything that was going to be towards my goal and setting, you know, using the framework, which I can start breaking it down, has helped me reach that bigger goal. And it makes the process less overwhelming overall. So what the SMART framework is S, like you said, Rashmi, is S for specific. So it is really focusing on a specific goal that's tangible. So it has to be a very specific goal. For example, you know, um, to save and invest $1,000 every month into a diversified portfolio for the next 12 months. So again, it's as specific, it's measurable, it's specific. We're focusing on investing. We're focusing on investing in a diversified portfolio, whatever it is that we want to invest in. We want to make sure we have clear what it is that we want to do with the money. And measurable, the amount is $1,000. So it is measurable. It's something that's we're able to do. It's not something that's, not that's unrealistic. So $1,000 per month. And this is by like individual case by case, like everybody's goals are going to look different, of course. And then A is for achievable, so realistic, based on your financial situation. Again, it has to be achievable and attainable for you. So I always
Yeah.
say, I find sometimes they use achievable, sometimes they use attainable, but like they both correlate. So A for
Yeah.
achievable, and then the R in SMART is for relevant. It's got to go back and tie to building financial security and growth. So it's got to be relevant to where you're trying to go. It can't be like,
Yeah.
obviously a goal that's not um, relevant, or I've also heard realistic.
Yeah.
Um, and then time bound, we're giving ourselves the 12 months, right, set to achieve within a specific time frame. So there has to be a specific time frame on your SMART goal.
Yeah.
And just to give, using this method ensures your financial goals are clear and actionables, versus, just want to give an example of something that's an unrealistic scenario using the same SMART framework, that would involve a goal that fails. Um, for example, you know, saving, if we were to say to save $50,000 per month, where if it's a person where, we each know our individual financial situation, if we're going to set an amount that's ridiculously out of our reach and out of our ability, then that's just going to disempower us to feel like we're not able to do it. So setting such a high goal of like assuming we could invest more than what we're able to invest. Let's say 50,000 per month. If we're not realistically able to do that, um, you know, and into a diversified portfolio starting in the next 12 months. Well, in that case, this goal is not achievable. Your income or your financial situation doesn't really support being able to save that amount of money. So really it's unrealistic, right? Taking the time to actually try on and and see
100%.
kind of
Unless
what
you're making
fits.
millions of dollars, then
Right, unless you're making
it,
millions of dollars, that may not be unrealistic for you then, right? Like,
right.
absolutely. Something that's more of a realistic scenario that is going to fit your goals and your needs right now. And then again, we want to make it relevant. If the amount is not relevant for you, and it goes far beyond your means or other financial priorities, then it doesn't align with your circumstances. Um, and it's not time bound effectively. So starting immediately without preparation may not be feasible, right? So we want to make sure that we're prepared and setting a good time frame where we know we're going to be able to achieve the goal in that specific like date, or time that we're giving ourselves. So even stretching it out, right? Like we can play around with like different types of uh, like time frames and time bounds so that it is effective. So yes, the SMART framework works best when the goals are grounded in reality of your financial situation while still challenging you in some sort of way to stretch you and grow.
Yeah. No, it it's definitely, like a powerful, if we use it, to your point, well, the smart framework, can really be powerful. I know I've
Yeah.
kind of personally struggled with this, in the beginning. I was like, I know I want to do this, but how do I make it, like measurable or achievable or, like even realistic, and
Yeah.
how do I break down the time? And I think, over time, as you keep practicing, with that smart strategy, it definitely, is powerful. It comes through, and and it, like I would say 12 months is a good goal, but even sometimes to make it, like 4 weeks,
Hmm.
is also, a good thing, because then you're like, okay, well, I hit 4 weeks. It's easier to measure that. So now let me go and do, another 4 weeks, right? Like, and kind of, be able to expand that. So I think there's
Yeah,
definitely power, to that. But
absolutely.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know
Of course.
we want to sort of, I think as this all sort of comes together, and in order to kind of build that muscle of being confident with
Mhm.
investments, and building sort of wealth, I think what I want to talk about is dive into sort of that psychology of smart investing, right? I know we've kind of dived into our mindset affects our investment decisions, more than we often realize, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
emotions, like be it fear, greed, can also kind of lead us to choices that we make that really aren't mindful. Like, I've been in that situation where I've got into like investing in stocks, and I see something goes down and I'm so emotional about it. I was like, oh my God. Like, I remember this phase a few years ago when we were doing Bitcoin, and I was trying to learn a little bit more about that. And it was just such an emotional
Yeah.
roller coaster. And obviously, like investing in real estate is different, because I know that, okay, well, this is how it's going to roll out, and it's it's a little different. It's a hard asset, so I know it's not going anywhere, right? Versus with stocks, just that immediate fluctuation would, like,
Mhm.
just, I was so fearful of that. um but also,
Yeah.
that can lead to making those sort of poor choices and impulsive choices, isn't it? Saying,
Yeah.
boom, let me sell it because, or whatever, I don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think to, invest wisely, it's important to sort of, stick to sort of, I think, the facts over feelings.
That's it.
It's definitely a muscle that, we all need to flex a little bit more. But it's, I think, realizing, what we've discussed as far as, being aware of, what our core is, in what are our beliefs, what is our association with, like with money, and using that um to I think guide us is really powerful. For example, if like the market dips, like I talked about, there's often a temptation to just sell, out for fear. But like if you kind of keep like the long-term perspective, and like you follow that strategy, that can lead to obviously better outcomes.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about like sort of the psychology of smart investing, I think it's, you know not being reactive. It's look at the facts over, like I said, feelings. um Wendy, could you like, maybe share like an example of how, changing your sort of mindset has helped, make better investment decisions?
Yeah. So this is again something that I have worked through in my life through my journeys still to this day. Um, I like if you would have asked me this question like a couple years ago, the answer would have been like, goodness, like I don't really talk about this specific subject. Like there was so much fear, doubt, and like here we are, right? Like you and I, we've been in this journey of like investing. I think investing money, going back to the concept of money is constantly circulating, but wealth is intentional. And I think both of those things really reflect, like, none of those things have emotions. They reflect your emotions. And that's the way I've
Yeah.
seen it. That's the way that I continue to work through it. It's like they have no emotion. They're only going to be reflecting what your emotions are. For me, investing was something new, even with my first single family project and the downturn of the market. Yes, it was nerve wracking, like especially that first deal when you're, well, for me, it was single family, but now into multifamily. But my first fix and flip that I ever did, there was a lot of emotion there. There was so many nerve-wracking moments where I thought the project wasn't going to turn out to be and be able to like profit from it. There was going to be losses and such things like that. But if we stick to those emotions, then we never allow ourselves to take the next step into bigger, better deals and opportunities. So yeah, I think a lot of it is psychology, like you said, the psychology of smart investing. Um, but going back to focusing on the fundamentals, staying on course instead of like panicking with all the things that are happening all the time that are out of our own control. So really focusing, again, psychology, focusing on what you can control, which the only thing we can control is ourselves and our mind, our mindset, and just releasing, right? Reminding myself that the volatility is part of the journey. That's part of the journey, and that's kind of what helped me rationalize a little bit on the decisions that I was making, rather than focusing on the emotions. I based it on making educated, informed decisions and focusing on what I could control. So
Yeah.
that's the way I've still do it. I That's the way I encourage people to do it. Again, psychology of everything that we do is a reflection of what we believe we are worthy of as well.
Yeah. I I couldn't agree with you more. It's so true. I do like, what you talked about as far as, like control what you can, like what you can control is really your emotions. You can't really control sort of market volatility or,
Right,
like
right.
even in multifamily, right?
Mhm.
It could be that, like your there could be a fire on your property. It's not something
Yeah,
that you can control, at that
can't
point,
control. Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
it's obviously, like, yeah, like being able to look at
What can you
emotions that
control?
you're able
Right,
to control
right.
and make those
We can
decisions. I
control
love
certain
that.
things, right? We can control making sure all of our properties are insured.
Ah,
That's something
100%.
we can control.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well
So,
said. Well
yeah,
said.
so it's so true.
Yeah, yeah. No, it goes back to, like obviously I think it's, exploring sort of the and mitigating those risks, right?
That's
But I
right.
think
Yeah.
going into once you own the decision making process and believing that yes, hey, I've set a goal and this is kind of where, I'm going to go with it as a next step. I think that's going to dictate a lot of what you do. So absolutely.
That's right.
Um, I
Yeah.
know we're a few minutes away from today's session. I don't know if the audience has any questions um, with what uh, with what we're talking about today. If you want to add, what you're sort of maybe struggling with, uh, it would be great. Again, we'd love to sort of hear what it is that you guys, think and what your takeaway is, because that would be super powerful. But
Yeah.
what I want to say before sort of, really closing out, today's session is, again, we were deliberate about, breaking up the sessions into 2 days. Obviously the mindset and, using the AIM framework, is really powerful for day one. It's realizing that, hey, these are sort of, what our beliefs are. These are sort of what our emotional connection is, to money. These are the barriers. This is what, like where our thought process is, but it's also changing that narrative of what you need to do and realizing to do that, I think is really what we want to focus on, for today, as well as being able to set those smart goals. Um, so I would encourage, like the audience to obviously go back to sort of that assignment or, download the form. It is a digital version, so you can type it out if you think that that's better. But I personally end up, writing my
Mhm.
goals versus typing. So whatever suits you, I would encourage you to go back, post this, webinar and uh, go back into the worksheet and write out, some of that, go into a little bit more depth, because I know we literally just touched the surface today. But I would encourage all of you to go back and look at it, and expand your answers. And, ask that question, like, why? Like take your time on reflecting on, sort of your memories and beliefs and, like what you've sort of uncovered, today in our discussion. I think that is going to be the foundation for how
Yeah.
you're going to be able to take actions as a next step. The second is I want you to, you know, write out 3 specific financial goals using the SMART criteria. Like outline what it is that you guys want to do. I don't know. It could be that, hey, we're trying to go on a family vacation and we're trying to save for that. It could be that. Or it can be that, we're looking to invest, in the next like 12 months and buy a single family home, or we want to invest as, and generate passive income, whatever, your goals are, I
Mhm.
would encourage you to use the SMART format to outline it. And finally, identify like another limiting belief you hold about money and reframe it, and own that, like reframed statement, right?
Mhm.
I think the more you practice about reframing, the stronger your financial sort of mindset is going to become. And, it'll help you sort of own that, much more. Um, do you have anything else to add, Wendy, to that?
Yeah, so I like to again just mention that it's good to set some time aside because it's almost like one of those things where we don't often sit down and reflect on. Like we may journal, but sometimes we don't like to journal about money and stuff like that. So make it an environment where it's like peaceful for you, where it's not gonna bring any type of shame, like where you're just gonna be able to like sit down, really reflect on what you're writing, what your goals are, where would you like to be, letting go a lot of the programming that we've been
Yeah,
carrying, the limiting beliefs that we're carrying, right? Like even things where you may not even um like identify it. You may not even think it's a limiting belief, right? But like a lot of it is just because we're so accustomed to certain things. But like even
yeah,
writing um like any thoughts, right? Like I love using again the SMART framework. I think it's good to be intentional, being very clear on what your individual goals are. Um, but yes, I just wanted to add that little touch. Like make sure
yeah,
it's intentional where you're setting some time and you're just gonna make it in the evening where you're lighting up a candle, you're sitting with like a glass of wine, you're enjoying yourself. We're like,
yeah.
where do I want
Like
to be
treat
by the end
yourself.
of 2025?
Absolutely.
Right? We're
No, I
starting
think
a whole
there's
new year.
100%. This is like the perfect time, right? We've all set goals back in, Jan,
Yeah,
perhaps in 2024 at the onset. And, like if we are true to ourselves, even to ask that, hey, did we actually, meet those, goals? Are we
right, right,
reflecting at the end of the year, saying, did we meet
right.
that? Did we have, like touch points through the year? That we held ourselves accountable for that. I think that's a perfect segue, right, into
That's
what
it.
we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Like tomorrow, we're
That's
going to build on this foundation. We're actually going to dive into more actionable strategies to create, like that concept of wealth with confidence, right? Like this is not as, just sort of talking about it, showing up at, like a webinar. I mean, you guys have invested in our coming up, and spending time with us today. Um, but now it's going into that next phase, where you'll come in and take those actionable steps, like outline, not just go back and do, like your three, goals, but when you come in tomorrow, you're going to be able to set actionable steps and have a framework for what that's going to look like. And
that's
we're
mhm.
also hosting, and as part of this webinar, we're offering, our participants, the option to, work with us on, like reviewing your goals or, strategies and providing you our feedback. Again, it's not it's an option that you guys can opt into, and we're happy to help you and hold each one of us accountable, to that, because really I think that's where the power is. But I
Yeah,
know we're,
yeah,
coming up on time, and
yeah.
you guys have been great. Wendy, you've been amazing. Thank you
Thank you,
for,
Rashmi.
yeah, thank you for being here, and
Of
like the
course.
insights that you shared. um we'll see you guys all tomorrow. Again,
Absolutely.
please go ahead, download, the form. It's on the landing page that we posted. We'll be sure to sort of, send you guys as part of the recording,
Yeah.
a link to the workbook as well. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yes.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.